So what I'm going to do is use my chart as an example. And what you're going to see here is that I don't have the 6-pointed star of David. In my birth chart, I've got just a 3-pointed star there. This is only because my spiritual and my physical numbers are exactly the same. So as you can see from this, all my numbers are in fact spiritual, even those in the physical chart. This in no way diminishes the power of these frequencies. You can trust me on that. So what I'm going to just do is annotate this chart, and I'm just going to talk you through the different numbers and what they mean. So karma in my physical and in my spiritual, right there, we've got a 10-1. And 10-1, it's pure Archangel Michael energy. It's about male and female balance. It's about service, and it's about channeling. So in its positive, the 10-1 is associated with pure service, whether that's quietly volunteering, or if, you know, for people here who are around to sort of shake up society for the better, that's the kind of 10-1. And these are the highest vibrational energies available because they contain the earthly and the cosmic, as well as the balance of masculine and feminine divinity. So people with this energy make excellent healers in the spiritual arena. And that's not just a plug for what I'm doing. They also have great vocal expression, and they have a really clear channel. Because it's an open channel to intuition and the divine, there's a lot of knowingness with these 10-1 people. And along with people who also have a 5-5 energy, which we do there. These are the most essentially spiritual energies. The problem with it, well, not the problem, but in its negative, 10-1s, they can have a real density with the everyday world and can often feel like they don't fit in as a result. Sometimes because of this, people with this number will often have a complete denial of their spiritual connection, despite the fact strange things seem to keep happening to them. There's often a total denial. Sometimes they're just very resistant to it, or they're always seeking to know more. Personally, for me, I grew up in went to Catholic nursery school, primary school, secondary school. And so what I was being taught didn't resonate particularly strongly, but I was obsessed with Gnosticism and finding out more, much to my teacher's chagrin. So there was always that search. So I guess that's always seeking to know more. People with 10-1s often experience energy rushes and these like intangible feelings and a lot of ungroundedness. And despite this, in the kind of karmic aspects of it, they'll still deny a deeper essence. 10-1 people can be highly strung, allegedly, and they can be quite obsessive compulsive in their actions. And sometimes in its negative, there's that feeling that things don't come easily to them. So they can be quite bitter and overly critical. Because of this as well, they often manifest obstacles and can run sabotages just to knock them off their spiritual progression. So it's a very, very tough, program, particularly if there's a kind of feeling of disconnection from source and all of those things that they're kind of plugged into. So yeah, it's all about finding a balance in the world to take a practical action of service. You know, at worst, you really can feel extreme separation anxiety and self-loathing. People with 10-1s are often tormented and very, very destructive. In the physical world, especially, 10-1s find themselves moving between jobs, not necessarily having strong career goals. And in the spiritual realms, they often seem like they're simultaneously on one plane of existence and another. So we have a tendency to sort of jump around a lot. So that's a 10-1, just in its kind of, you know, top level essence there. And now we're going to move over to the 5-5, which is in a talent position. So 5 is all about speaking your truth. It's about intuition. It's about spirit, and it's also about freedom. And it's positive. 5 energy means you're very open-minded to spiritual growth. And people with this frequency are usually highly intuitive, similar to the 10-1. People with fives are quite bold by nature, and they're very open to exploring new ideas, both physically, mentally, that are beyond the kind of everyday and normal confines. People with fives often find that they can effortlessly attune to abstract ideas in the everyday or spiritual arenas. And they're kind of described as free spirits. They're not afraid to speak out, and fives are often very articulate, but they're also very left field in their orientation. So they need a lot of space to kind of express this. People with fives in their charts operate as the kind of bridge between the spiritual and the physical realms, simply because the five energy is very ethereal. So this needs to be embodied as fully as possible in order to make an impact on the density of the everyday world. And, you know, with that, in its negative, it's very, very hard for fives to fit into the world and into the mainstream. Often we kind of embody that hermit characteristic, living on the edge of society. And sometimes fives don't always integrate with society. You know, in its extreme cases, it might be like people who turn to drink and things and just hide away from the world because it's just too much for them. But there's varying layers depending on where people are at in their journey, you know, but it is quite hard, and you can feel quite alienated with this number. For the most sensitive of fives, the world can seem just like a very, very horrible place. And the reason for this is that at the heart, people with fives, we just want things to be peaceful and tranquil and to be treated gently by people. But when this doesn't happen, we get upset. So, you know, even if it's not always visible. People with fives have a tendency to take their intuition for granted as well. Often they assume that people have the same abilities that they do, whether that's being able to engage with things like spirits or entities, or just being able to see the truth of somebody or a situation. It's quite baffling sometimes when you realize that people can't do that. And so that's kind of a lesson, you know, you can't take that for granted. People with fives as well often use their intuition to pick up on each other people's weaknesses and gain power through manipulation. For me, that comes out particularly when I'm having an argument, usually with a partner. It's not even necessarily cruel, it's just you know exactly what to say to really hurt. So yeah, for fives, it's all about setting energetic boundaries and making sure that there's a place of retreat to sort of disengage with that intensity of the world. If you don't do that, stress can build up because this is a very, very, very highly sensitive number. And fives are always very spacey and ungrounded, and quite a lot of time you end up getting physically injured, which definitely resonates, just walking into door frames and things. So that's the frequencies of the fives. And then finally, we move on to goals. And this is a 9-9. So 9-9 is all about the power of spirit. It's catalytic, it's discerning. And it's also, people talk about the power and the unstoppableness of the nines. But for me, it's also very much about peacemaking. So the Hebrew letter means tet, and this is snake or serpent, both of which, by the way, are interchangeable in the Bible. In its positive, people holding this energy will just feel this innate sense of protection. You know, they've often lived literally 9 lives. It's a bit like the saying. We've got quite a secure sense of self-belief and very little to prove about who they are. People who are 9s can often know exactly who they are in its positive. In difficult situations, we can be quite gifted in conflict resolution, and in day-to-day dealings, we act with certainty, but tend to demonstrate quite good forbearance, tolerance, and resolve, mostly because we've had to learn to transmute a lot of this energy of emotional anger into strength and loving kindness. This energy is really about spiritual connection and service. And people with 9s often open up to the spiritual aspect of themselves at quite a young age. People with 9s will be drawn to spirituality, and they have a strong healing channel, particularly in hearing. that's the main quality. And this number is so catalytic, so it tends to strengthen the other energies in the plan as well. So the 10-1 and the 5-5. In its negative, 9s carry a lot of disempowerment, and there can be a huge amount of resistance to trusting and connecting with spiritual essence and intuition. Yeah, in its negative, we can have quite a lot of fears or a sense of being quite vulnerable. And people with 9s can misuse their power and energy through control and manipulation of others. And again, this can be done through intuition or knowledge, exactly the same as the 5s and the 10-1s. This can come about as well because people with 9s often suffer a lot of abuse and we do tend to have a lot of trauma. This is because we have to experience having our power taken away. And the theme of having power like usurped or giving it away to others, that continues until we learn to claim it back. And if we don't learn to claim back our power properly, people with 9s are very destructive through abuse or control, whether that's others or through self-destruction. So it could be substance abuse, self-harm, putting themselves in danger. The list goes on. A lot of people with 9s as well will use alcohol, and this can be to either open up or to close down the clairvoyancy, depending on where you're at, whether it's too much or too little. And this is again just another form of giving away power, but this energy is extremely, extremely demanding on a physical body. So it's like being energetically switched on all the time. So you've got a lot of energy and an exhaustion with this number, but you've got this ability to just keep going. And that can be, it's exhausting, and you're sensitive to absolutely everything around you all of the time. So when you've got this combination of a 9-9 energy in a goal position with a 5 in talents, it strengthens and provides much needed focus and direction for the 5, but it does make everything it can burn through everything. So that's just a very brief explanation of the numbers in my chart, so you get an idea of the 10-1, the 9-9 and the 5-5. So thank you for listening, and if you are interested in a soul contract reading, feel free to drop me an email. My email address is beyondtheshadowsco@gmail.com. Thank you very much.